Today we embark on a journey that's probably going to take us several videos. I'm going to start by talking about TrueNas Scale. TrueNas, you can run a server in your small or medium-sized business, or even at home if you're an enthusiast, and it's going to do a lot of really awesome things for you. Pretty much anybody that is a computing enthusiast eventually ends up with some kind of a something at home. And check it out. This is what we're rocking. It's enterprise grade storage. When you talk server, you usually talk storage. Well, our storage is based around LSI, old NetApp and LSI disk shelves. It was originally bundled as part of a NetApp solution, which is like IBM's fancy pants storage thing. This costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, more than like 5 years ago. But for home usage, other than the electricity usage, which stings a little bit, something like this is really incredible. And for small business or random YouTuber usage, this kind of thing is pretty good. Cast off enterprise equipment. You can save it from the dumpster, you can save it from the landfill. I definitely saved my fair share of hardware from the landfill, and you can run something on it like TrueNas and have access to a lot more functionality than you used to. If I wanted to keep running the LSI stuff, the NetApp stuff from IBM, well, there'd be licenses and questions, and it wouldn't run quite as well. I can put faster hardware in front of the older disk shelves, and the whole thing actually speeds up. And so our server platform here is based around our Xeon 8124Ms. We did a separate video on this a while back. You can pick up some of these old Skylake Xeons on eBay for practically nothing. We've also got another system here that has a bunch of, it's a 2U server instead of the 1U server, and has a bunch of NVMe. We're going to come back to that one, but I'm going to be running TrueNas Scale on both of them. But I also wanted to point out, if you're doing the home server use case, you could get a NUC, or you could get something like the Desk Mini X300. This has an 8-core 4750G in it. This is crazy. A crazy amount of horsepower. It has 32 gigabytes of memory, and it has two 4TB 2.5-inch hard drives. Yeah, check it out. This is the Samsung Cuvo 4TB. Two of these in here in RAID 1. It's a mirror, so if either one of these dies, this thing will keep on trucking. We also got NVMe storage, optional wireless. I wish the integrated NIC was just a little bit better, like 2.5 gig, something like that. But hey, I've got a couple of USB ports and all that. This for my home server, and if you need more than 4 terabytes of storage, I can add an external USB 3, like a 20 terabyte mechanical hard drive for media storage. But this thing is tiny. Look at this. This is even in like a studio apartment, you could use this as a server and run a ton of containers. But why would you ever want to do that? Well, let's take a look at the applications section of TrueNas Scale. Alright, so we just click on apps on the left side, and we go to available applications, and out of the box it doesn't look like there's a ton here, but you can actually add more. This is actually really cool. IPFS, Minio, tons of Chia mining. Wait, what? We can plot Chia on this? Nextcloud, Collabora, and Plex Media Server. These are all official apps. Now you can definitely install unofficial apps, and you can go to manage Docker images. So if you want to run something like Home Assistant for home automation stuff as a Docker image, or even as a full-fledged virtual machine, you can do that. You want to use something like ZFS with snapshots for ransomware protection and back up your home computer or home computers onto, your documents and stuff like that, onto something like this, you can do that. This thing also has a built-in VPN. So if you want to run OpenVPN and have OpenVPN running on your phone, which has really good support for both Android and iOS, you can have a VPN on your phone all the way back to your TrueNas appliance, and then all of your stuff is encrypted, but you can access your files locally, anything that you've got stored in Nextcloud. And the same is true with like your laptop or your remote computers or anything else that you might be running. It's basically access to your stuff anywhere, but without necessarily relying on the cloud. If your home internet connection is good enough, your upload speed specifically is good enough, you won't really be able to tell much difference between running it off of a system like this and running it in a data center. So you can avoid a subscription or something like that. Some ISPs don't even give you a real public internet address, so you can use the Linode or something like that to host the internet connection, and how you get there is your TrueNas machine will connect to the Linode, and then you'll connect to the Linode through the VPN, and then you can talk to your TrueNas machine, even though your ISP might firewall your internet connection or not give you a public IP address. All of those things are true. So TrueNas is from a company called IX Systems, and TrueNas, this user interface and things like that, is really the result of a bunch of years of work. You may have heard of FreeNAS in the past. Well, FreeNAS and TrueNAS as well, but FreeNAS was a really, really popular product from IX Systems because you could, if you're a reasonably advanced user, you could download it and start using it and all that kind of stuff. It's not super noob friendly, but once you figure it out and do the stuff, it was really awesome. Well, TrueNAS, there's TrueNAS Core and TrueNAS Scale. They have a very, very similar, almost identical user interface, but the underpinnings are what's different or what separate them. So TrueNAS Scale is Linux-based and TrueNAS Core is FreeBSD based. And there's lots of videos on both of them already. You can definitely check them out. But because TrueNAS Scale is Linux-based, I wanted to look at it. I wanted to push it to the breaking point. I wanted to do things that they definitely don't intend for you to do, which is awesome. That's gonna foreshadowing for some videos that are coming. So this system, as configured, has two 10 gigabit interfaces, but I'm going to be upgrading that to Mellanox connections that are 100 gigabit. And for the switch, I'm going to be using a Dell S5212 F-ON. And the reason is this is a relatively affordable 100 gigabit switch. It has 300 gig ports and 12 25 gig ports, and the street price of around $1,200, give or take. The switch actually runs Debian as a control operating system. Actually, that's a whole other set of conversations that I want to get into, because on the networking side, we have the Open Network Initiative stuff, and so out of the box, the Dell switch doesn't come with anything installed in the operating system. It actually has UEFI, and you can configure stuff, and that's just, there's a forum thread on that. I gotta get my hands on some cheap ONI equipment and talk about open switching stuff and things like that. But this is a Dell product for the switch side of it, and that's what we're going to be using for our connection for this kind of thing. But I wanted to give you my sort of introduction to TrueNAS Scale as something that should definitely be on your radar, and something that will scale from something like this to something like our massive storage server that currently has 48 mechanical hard drives and 16 2 terabyte NVMe drives attached to it. Yeah, that's pretty much the limit of what you're going to be able to do on Skylake. We're going to do some other stuff on our Epic platform, our AMD Epic platform. Now, both of these servers that we're using, the enterprise grade servers here, they are from Gigabyte, and we have done videos on both of these Gigabyte enterprise servers in the past. So if that's something you're interested in, you should definitely check out our past videos on that kind of stuff. But both of these platforms are dual platform sockets. They've got tons of memory capacity. Right now I've got 192 gigabytes in the Xeon system. I'll probably move most of that over to the AMD system when we switch to testing on the AMD platform. I actually don't have enough memory to keep all of the servers that I have running, because the memory shortage and memory is expensive, and experiments, gotta always run experiments. There's a lot of experiments that are coming. I've also got an 8380 Xeon that we're going to test, a dual socket 8380 Xeon. I'm working out some weird performance anomalies with NVMe on that platform. I think we got them fixed. Turns out it's a microcode platform update kind of thing from Supermicro, so that'll be another future video down the road. But TrueNAS Scale, can it scale to 100 gigabits? I can tell you right now, yes, it absolutely can scale to 100 gigabits. The thing that you run into with scaling to 100 gigabits and beyond is more on the ZFS side of things, because ZFS loves to make copies of things in memory, even when you tell it not to. And so, you know, you need 2 to 3 times the amount of main memory bandwidth as your storage bandwidth. And if you've got 16, you know, NVMe drives that can do 8 gigabytes per second, you really quickly start to be within striking distance of the total memory bandwidth of the entire platform. And this is a problem that cascades down to a lot of different things. To the point that now network cards are doing more and more offloading because it's just too much work to move the data. Like the computer, the processor is fast enough, the bus is fast enough, but it's just too much work with everything else to shuttle the data from the network card over the bus to the CPU, let the CPU deal with it. Maybe it's going to juggle some stuff in memory and send it on back out again. I'm not really ready to talk about that part of it yet, but to give you a little preview, I want to get RDMA, Remote DMA, working in a server capacity on TrueNAS Scale. And one of the first things that I've run into with TrueNAS Scale is that it really wants to be an appliance, even more so than FreeNAS in the past. FreeNAS in the past really wanted to be an appliance too, but you could sort of take the system by the reins and use FreeBSD package management and then be able to customize your system. And the portable nature of ZFS means that if you just completely screwed up your FreeNAS system, your ZFS pool, where all of your important data was completely protected and safe. And that carries over into TrueNAS. TrueNAS Scale has some incredible stuff built into the GUI to help you set up redundancy. So I've initially just set up a 4-drive RAID Z1 for experiment out of 2 terabyte Kioxia NVMe drives. And it's fast, it's responsive, it's very stable, it's a very polished user interface. I like it a lot. I like what TrueNAS Scale has done. This is easier and more accessible than it's ever been in the past when it was, you know, a FreeNAS type product. And TrueNAS Scale, being a Linux underbelly, maybe gives you some better driver support, at least more wide driver support than you would get with FreeBSD, and maybe some different performance characteristics. You know, over at Lawrence Systems, Tom Lawrence has been doing testing of iSCSI. So like if you run a VMware server, you might have virtual machine storage available on your ESXi hosts as iSCSI targets. And depending on if you're going to do that, you know, the iSCSI performance actually is a little bit better right now on FreeBSD than it is on Linux, IOPS and other performance. So if I were going to do that with my storage, then FreeBSD, TrueNAS Core instead of TrueNAS Scale, or one of the paid IX Systems products, might be a better choice. But my ultimate ambition is to be able to use some of the features in the KVM virtual machine stuff in Linux to do some advanced stuff with virtualization. And TrueNAS Scale doesn't provide any facility for that yet. I'd actually go so far as to discourage anybody from messing around with the Linux underbelly, because they store the configuration for TrueNAS Scale in its own sort of configuration management thing. And so if you go off the beaten path and start customizing stuff, then that'll break things, and then you'll go to their forum for support and do all that stuff. So if you do anything that I'm even suggesting or hinting, don't go to IX Systems for help. They will send a hit squad, and it will be bad. It will be very bad. Very, very bad. But you could come to the level 1 forums and let's talk about it, figure it out. Maybe we can actually get it going. So one of the first things that I ran into is I wanted to customize virtual machine configuration. You can do that from the command line on Linux using VRSH, VRSH, virtual machine shell. And you export an XML file and you can manipulate the XML file, and then you can do a whole bunch of other stuff. Zero support for that in TrueNAS Scale, and that's by design. They don't want you to mess with that because it enters unsupportable territory really quickly. It's easy to break your system in unexpected ways if you're messing with that. So what did I do? I installed Cockpit. I just wanted to see what would happen. Cockpit is a web GUI management thing, actually from Red Hat, but you can install it on the underlying Linux operating system of TrueNAS Scale, and it mostly is functional. And so you can have a separate web GUI on the same machine for managing virtual machines. And it can see the virtual machine that TrueNAS creates. If it manipulates it, TrueNAS will reset that manipulation back to whatever it thinks the configuration should be. So they fight with one another. Definitely don't recommend this. But I just thought it was funny that there was at least a capability of doing that kind of thing. Even though that's very off script and very unsupportable and very I don't recommend it, and very, if you're going to do this at home, just, you know, stick to the Docker containers, stick to the stuff that you can do in the GUI, because that's the choice that they've made with their platform. And so, but me, I like to color outside the lines. So here's what I want to work on. Here's what I've got for you to look forward to. 100 gigabit Ethernet. Can we saturate 100 gigabit Ethernet and also minimize the CPU utilization? You know, of course, with 2 18-core sockets or 2 64-core sockets, depending on which platform we're using, or even 2 40-core sockets on our Xeon 8380, that is not going to be a problem to saturate 100 gigabit Ethernet with our Mellanox ConnectX-5 network cards. I need more of those, by the way. If your company have ConnectX-4 and 5 cards just laying around you want to get rid of, call me. Let's chat. Let's do some stuff. So yes, you can do it if you throw a bunch of CPU at it, but you don't really need to throw a bunch of CPU at it because those Mellanox cards have excellent offload capabilities. One of the really frustrating things is in Windows, storage spaces and their storage stuff sucks. It's bad, even in Server 2022. I don't think anybody's really testing that outside of the Azure use case. Oh, in Azure, it's glorious. But nobody's building the hardware that's exactly like Azure, so if your performance is going to be relatively garbage. Now, in terms of like the bubble that is Windows, Server 2022 storage performance is amazing, so much better than Server 2019. But when you step just a little tiny bit outside of that, the current state of the art with Linux is the ability to run 10 million IOPS on 2 threads in 1 core. That is where we are with the bleedingest edge version of the Linux kernel. Now, that version of the Linux kernel is not at TrueNas scale yet. We're about a year or two away from that version of the kernel being widespread. Again, if you're like me and you can, do some stuff and customize it, you can have that today. But yeah, 10 million IOPS with 2 threads is completely insane. And you can do that with a couple of, a set of Intel P5800 Optane drives, because of the very low latency and very high throughput. I've got 2 P5800Xs, and they are screaming monsters on any platform that you use it on Team Red or Team Blue. Looks like Team Blue is going to do some crazy stuff with Sapphire Rapids, but that level of performance with that relatively low CPU overhead is not currently possible in TrueNas scale. So my question is can I get there? And can I get there with RDMA, Remote DMA? Because remember I mentioned the whole offloading thing. Remote DMA is something that Windows Server actually does well and has been really well supported. And interestingly enough, on the SMB client, RDMA is also supported. So if you have the Windows Server and a Linux client, you can offload a lot of the processing and things like with multi-channel, and the network card does most of the heavy lifting. And so it's very low overhead to get many multiples of gigabytes per second from Windows Server to Linux client. But no one has ever implemented RDMA on the server side for Samba, at least not that I can find, not that's paid for. I may be wrong about that. So if you know something about that and you want to share, you want to do some homework with me, by all means, let's work together. Let's do something. But I think I'm going to try some out of the box stuff and try to Frankenstein some of the stuff from Windows into this platform and see if I can't get RDMA to operate anyway. And so I'm setting up this platform, I'm setting up TrueNas scale, and I'm setting up for some other videos. So I thought this first video is an introduction to say, hey, 100 gigabit platform, dual Xeon 8380, dual EPYC 64 core 7763, dual Skylake Xeons, and all of the memory and all of the fixins and 100 gigabit Mellanox connections. What do you want to see with this? Let's do something really amazing and exciting and interesting. And something like TrueNas scale is the minimum that you need to take advantage of that. I mean, yes, you can run something pedestrian on this, but TrueNas scale has gotten so easy that you should at least check it out, because even though it has a bunch more enterprise features than other storage options that you have for, deploying something on this to have your home server, I like the way that TrueNas scale and TrueNas core, both of them do it. And you could run either one of them on this, you could run either one of them on the other stuff. But for the stuff that I plan to do with virtualization and virtual machines, I can only do what I plan to do on TrueNas scale. It's not going to work on TrueNas core, I know that much. But I've still got some homework to do. I still got some stuff that I want to do, and yeah, I just wanted to share. Just wanted to see how this video goes and see what questions you have. If you have any questions about building something like this for your home, it's like, hey, I saw you had the X300 with dual 4 terabyte hard drives. How does that work? Well, come to the forum, let's chat. Or if you already have something like that, let's take a look at it. A lot of you are rocking, Xeon NUCs and or other Intel NUCs, including the Xeon NUC and some other stuff at home, and that's always a lot of fun. It's a little bigger than this. I also reviewed that. But yeah, TrueNas as your home and small medium business server with all the apps and the virtualization stuff is extremely powerful. But overall, takeaway, my impression of this kind of software is that it's come a long way in terms of features and flexibility, but it's also gotten more user-friendly than ever. So if you tried FreeNAS in the past and had a bad experience, you really should give TrueNas Scale or TrueNas Core a try. I slightly recommend this release candidate for TrueNas Scale. I'm going to have to do, over Core, but I'm going to have to do some more testing and some more other stuff. And that's mainly because I want to use this as a system to build onto, which IX System kind of seems like they frown on just a little bit. Which I get it, it's like they're overworked as it is. Come to the level 1 forums if you need help with the color outside the lines. Don't burden the people that work on this for a day job, because it'll suck up all their time, and we don't need that. It's not good. So I'm Wendell, this is level 1. This has been a quick vlogish ramble about what I'm doing with TrueNas Scale on the ridiculous server hardware. So yeah, stay tuned, get subscribed. Let's talk about stuff. Let's talk about your home server use case, because being able to run Nextcloud at home and VPN into that, that's kind of transformative. It's really good stuff. Maybe I should do a separate video on that. I'm Wendell, this is level 1. I'm signing out. You can find me in the level 1 forums.